We're gonna call the Utilities Committee meeting to order. Members present, Councilman Dempsey Lambert, Councilman Dennis Cullen, South. Absent, Councilman Benny Johnson and Councilman Shake Snyder. Give him a case, Mr. Lambert, if you don't mind.
Please stand by you. Dear Lord, thank you for today. Please give us the strength, the wisdom, conduct the parish business. Ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Also like to recognize our parish president, Mr. Tommy Martinez, Chief Administrator, Mr. Cedric Grant. Anybody wishing to speak on anything on the agenda, sign in with the secretary, and you have 15 minutes, 3 minutes to speak. Apologize for that. Agenda item number 4, a presentation, DEQ. Mr. Chuck.
Councilman, as Mr. Berger comes up, let me introduce him. Mr. Berger works in the regulatory division of DEQ and has been working on the parish's TDMDL reports. And we thought it was very important that you received a report on where we are going forward in this whole sewer development program. We've worked very closely with DEQ. As you know, we'll talk a bit more today about the loan application and the money that they've helped to secure. But the story that we are trying to address is the one that Mr. Berger will tell you today, and what the problems of Ascension Parish are going forward in this regulatory environment and how we need to address it. So with that, I'll turn it over to Chuck Berger.
Mr. Chuck.
All right. First of all, I've given this presentation here before, but there's been a few significant changes in it, so we'll be able to address that. I work with the group at DEQ that does computer models and develops what they call total maximum daily loads, or TMDLs. We go out, collect survey data, come back, put it all together. It takes approximately 2 years from very beginning to the end to do it. And we've been working on the Bayou Manchac TMDL. We also have surveyed New River and Blind River as well. But Bayou Manchac is on the consent decree, and that's one we have. It's high priority. And first of all, what is a TMDL? And it's basically just the sum of all the point source and non-point source loads with a margin of safety. And it's the sum of the loads that the water body can handle while still meeting its dissolved oxygen criteria. And it was set, of course, by the Clean Water Act. That we have a number of federal regulations that we have to go by, and they're 40 CFR 130.7. It basically requires that states identify all their impaired water bodies, establish a priority ranking for those water bodies, and then go forth and establish the TMDLs accordingly. And with those TMDLs, is one of the things that comes out of it is the limits for your individual facilities. In EPA's view, if we don't do it, EPA is going to pick it up and do it. Our deadline right now, as I'll show you in a minute, is March 2011. And supposedly, if we don't complete it by then EPA can step in, and they have 1 year to complete it. It's not likely they're going to do that. We work very closely with them. They don't want any more work. They have contractors doing a lot of work as well. If a facility is not named in the TMDL, not given an allocation, it has been their assumption in the past that they don't discharge. So it's very important they get included in these TMDLs. That is the schedule that I mentioned. Basically, EPA was sued in 1996, and a result of it is this schedule that we have to go by. And they also came up with a list of water bodies, highly impaired water bodies, that we call a consent decree. One other decision that was established in Florida, I don't know if it's going to take precedence everywhere, but it kind of has been, and that is if a water body is impaired, you don't get any new facilities. You can't have additional loading into those water bodies. right now. This is just a little bit of history of what we've been working on over the past 10 years or so. In just a number of TMDLs in all the basins throughout the state. The Pontchartrain is our last basin we've been working on, and quite honestly, we knew it was going to be the most difficult because it's the most populated area. We're currently working on about 20 dissolved oxygen TMDLs in the Pontchartrain Basin. Plan to do some nutrient TMDLs as well. And we have some people that are working on nutrient criteria. And when that is done, we will, we anticipate developing nutrient TMDLs for some of these water bodies. It's also, one thing I want to stress about your facility going to the Mississippi River is we're also getting involved with the hypoxia zone and the dead zone, and a lot of that is contribute to nutrients. A lot of it's, mostly from Iowa and Idaho and all those states up north, but I think when the ruling comes down, it's not going to give preference to anybody. It's going to be everybody going into the Mississippi. So my point there is just nutrients are going to be an issue for discharges going to the Mississippi River. Just more, we're working on the Tickfaw River. And, EPA is working on the TMDLs in the Tickfaw River. They're also doing TMDLs for fecal coliform, chloride, sulfate, TSS, and turbidity and sediment. What we have seen over the past 10 years is that there's a lot of dischargers that are going to have to upgrade their treatment levels. In some cases, new dischargers may not be allowed, new facilities may not be allowed to discharge to some of the impaired water bodies. We've seen required non-point load reductions anywhere from 65 to 100% of man-made load, and explain a little bit what that means is a lot of the basins we've been working in the past, there are a lot of agricultural impacts, so we attribute it to that. In the Pontchartrain Basin, like in Bayou Manchac in particular, we had 138 facilities discharging to it. No way we can sample all those, A lot of those get accounted for in the non-point loading. And we've had a way of equating that load reduction to more stringent treatment levels. So once we develop the TMDLs, they'll have to be implemented, of course. The point source loads will be implemented through the permits, and the non-point source loads are usually implemented through voluntary programs. We've had a group at DEQ involved in, they've had very good response. They work with the farmers very well. They've gotten a lot of feedback and a lot of cooperation from the farmers, and they've been very successful in building their program. They do a lot of education, things like that. Some of the current challenges in addressing our TMDLs is, addressing no discharge situations in the Lake Pontchartrain. I said that, also we're going to have to address nutrient issues, and we also have to account for MS4 permits in our TMDLs now. So, there's a big push from EPA to not really establish limits, but we have to establish a load in our TMDLs. That means the next step is they'll probably be coming down with more stringent limits on the MS4 permits. We're really against that because of the nature of the stormwater. It's variable and unpredictable. So one of the biggest changes or challenges we've had is allocating to the hundreds of permitted and unpermitted facilities in a given water body. In Manchac, we had 138 facilities that we know about. In just an example, in the Chafuncta River, it's estimated somewhere around 980 facilities. I think that includes, originally we knew about 748 of them, but there was quite a few that were unpermitted. We've gone through out there. We had our survey crews going out there and finding those guys and, knocking on doors, telling them they need to get permitted. We're going to be doing it in Bayou Manchac as well. So they didn't get to do it before we did the TMDL. Ideally, that's what they would want to do. But when those facilities like that come online, they're going to get the same limits, or it's likely they will get the same limits as the equivalent facilities that we have already addressed. When we go out and do the surveys, we collect samples from some of the facilities, so we have an idea of what they're putting out there and what type of load reductions are going to be required to give. And what we're really trying to do is provide good environmental regulation that enhances long-term stable economic growth. Our view has been with all this is that environmental regulation does not inhibit or prohibit growth. I think in the long term it actually helps growth, you know, clean environment, clean waters, clean air. People want to live here, want to have businesses here, things of that sort. Some of the things we're doing to address all these situations is we have what we call ecoregions, which is just an area that's geographically similar, and we expect all the water bodies to act similarly. And we've been working on revising some of those ecoregion lines because we think Bayou Manchac and some of the water bodies, or at least portions of them along the north rim of the Pontchartrain Basin, fit into what we call the Lower Mississippi River alluvial plain. And when we do that, we're also looking at the dissolved oxygen criteria and nutrient criteria during this process. We're going to revise the DO criteria, and it's very likely that it's going to be reduced significantly. Because you know, right now the dissolved oxygen criteria that we're using for Bayou Manchac is 5 milligrams per liter, and that was just something that was set up by EPA back when all this came around, and Louisiana didn't have a criteria in place already, so we had to use their nationally recommended value. Not appropriate for Bayou Manchac or any of these water bodies, or any water bodies in South Louisiana where it doesn't flow unless it rains somewhere. It's just sitting there cooking, you know, hot and everything. There's no chance for reaeration. You know, it's very organic material in the water bodies. We've already revised the criteria for the Barataria and Terrebonne basins, so that's where we're working on the Pontchartrain right now. And usually when we develop a TMDL, we send it to EPA, get it approved, and then it's, you know, becomes a part of our water quality management plan, and all the permits start getting adjusted after that. Well, we don't want to do that based on the criteria that's inappropriate. So we're working on a phased TMDL approach. It's a tool that EPA had in place, and it is intended to be used when you have to meet a deadline like we do, but you feel that, one, either the data isn't sufficient for you to make a good justifiable recommendation, or that you know you're going to be changing the criteria soon, and that's what we're doing. So right now we've got phase one, and originally we were going to have no implementation in phase one. We can't do that. That's in violation of the Clean Water Act, so there will be some implementation in phase one. It wouldn't be what the TMDL would call for a 5. For a 5, we're saying a 100% reduction of the man-made load going into Bayou Manchac. That means nobody discharges. But it will be a step in that direction. Phase 2 is going to come about when we revise the dissolved oxygen criteria. Then we're going to revise the runs in our, we're going to revise our model runs accordingly, and we'll come up with some very different values. But based on the data we've already seen, it's still going to require somewhere in the neighborhood of a 75% load reduction. So, and one of the things we also do now is we send out facility notification letters for each TMDL. When we first public noticed Bayou Manchac TMDL, we sent out 132 letters to different permitted facilities that, you know, that we knew about, and we got a lot of comments. We got more comments from the Bayou Manchac TMDL than I have in the past 14 years that I've been associated with the program. Again, it's just a little more explanation about the phased approach. One of our big recommendations that we have with our TMDLs is the regionalization, large regional treatment plants. Well, I guess the first option is large regional treatment plants. There could be some sort of decentralized regional system, or then you may upgrade some existing plants to become small regional plants. We say regional plants because probably the best limit you're going to get are 525, which is 5 milligrams per liter BOD5, 2 milligrams per liter ammonia, 5 DO. And We just haven't seen small plants, small subdivision plants that can meet those limits. I've heard they can. Maybe there's new technology out there, but the plants that we've seen, they're not being operated that way. One of the recommendations, address nutrients. We're probably going to have, at least in some permits, some little language in there that requires facilities to just sample for nutrients. There won't be a permit limit, but it's just a sample for nutrients. Let them know so they can have an idea of what they're putting out there when nutrient criteria comes around, and they know what type of adjustments they'll have to make. If you have wetlands, they're a very useful tool to use. Even with your plant going to the Mississippi River, as I said, there's going to be nutrient issues. Wetlands, we got a lot of wetlands that need nutrients. We've had some very successful projects with those. I know a lot of people have heard different things about the one in Hammond, but I've heard that the wetlands actually improving. A lot of what's going on there, it was originally a freshwater marsh, and then I guess over time, due to lack of fresh water, it became a saltwater marsh. Now it's moving back to a freshwater marsh, and I think a lot of what people are seeing, they're interpreting that as degradation, but it's just being, changing back to what it originally was. But if you got wetlands, there's something that you might want to think about using. You could certainly ship a little bit of that to the wetlands, and then it may allow you to expand later on. And then load reductions through facility upgrades. That one's listed last because it's probably going to be very costly for some of the smaller plants to do that. This slide is just to demonstrate some of the positive impacts of regionalization. I looked at Bayou Manchac and all the facilities that we know about and calculated their total load going into the Bayou Manchac, and I come up with 1,529 pounds per day. Then I pretended like all those facilities were going to a regional plant that was treating to the 525. And I come up with 415 pounds per day, and that's a 73% load reduction. So to meet our proposed criteria, that's calling for 75% reduction. That's it right there. Looking at the Denham Springs plant, they've gotten several awards recently. We surveyed that bayou, or that Grays Creek, before the new plant was in place. So we had some data in there that allowed me to compute and calculate a load that was coming out of the facility at that time. Then I looked at some of their discharge monitoring reports, and I guess from, say, June of 2009 to December of 2009, for the first 3 months, their load reduction was 35 to 50%. They had some ups and downs, but they appeared to be improving. For the last 4 months, 50 to 70% load reduction. And that's with their existing collection area. They want to expand that collection area to take in an additional 2,700 residences. So that would just be additional load reduction. Those residents are probably going into Grays Creek right now, so, in a sense, that they would be taking it out of Grays Creek. They were going to do this over 4 years, but now they have stepped it up to take it, do it all in 1 year. Just regional plants can generally achieve a higher load removal efficiency to place the load, or place the effluent at fewer locations in the stream. They're easier to maintain, monitor, and regulate and operate. That's the big thing right there, probably. And they're generally less expensive to build and operate when you're talking about dollars per gallon. Now, those aren't, there's a lot more costs in there, and probably, if you go to a regional treatment plant, putting in that collection system is going to be huge, and then what you're going to do with your old plants. Right here is just saying there's a lot of adjustments that people would have to make to achieve our water quality goals, and local governments plan for regionalization. That's that was the point of this presentation right now, is to notify people so they can start planning ahead. That's the reason we're doing the phased TMDL approach. And we're also, we plan to come back and address your council in May. And there's a series of meetings that we have planned. We want to address the council members and decision makers for Ascension Parish, East Baton Rouge Parish, Livingston Parish, St. Tammany, and Tangipahoa. And, you know, we're welcome to take in additional neighboring parishes at that time. But those are scheduled for May. Well, they're tentatively scheduled for May. But the idea is to talk to the decision makers to let them know what's coming with the TMDLs and, you know, the situation with some of their impaired water bodies, so they can start planning. And, you know, another idea is develop new ordinances, address point and non-point source loads, address your MS4 issues, and then your different non-point activities. Local businesses, again, they're going to have to plan to tie in these regional treatment systems. I know that in case of Denham Springs, they got a lot of people that have said, hey, when you come around and tie me in, I'm ready, you know. But they're concerned that some of these subdivisions that are operated by commercial businesses, whether they're going to tie in or not. Citizens, get involved, local, you know, join local watershed groups, learn what's going into your water bodies. I think, you know, if you sat down and looked at all the facilities that were discharging to your various water bodies, you'd be surprised. And if you see some of the things they're putting in there, a lot of them aren't treating as well as they should be. I think you'd definitely be surprised. And that's why I wanted to get out and start addressing, you know, councils and things like that. Everybody just become involved, like I said. The big issue is funding. I think Mr. Grant has done an excellent job in acquiring some funding, but I think if a TMDL comes out that says, number one, you can't discharge, you're going to find avenues for funding, you know, or that, you know, even if it says that your ability to discharge is going to be greatly reduced, you'll find ways for funding. You know, we got the SRF loans at DEQ. There was stimulus money that we've been issuing, and I think Mr. Grant has gotten some of both of those. In myth versus truth. Myth is environmental regulations prohibit economic growth. I think the truth is just the opposite. It actually enhances long-term stable economic growth. I think there are other states that are doing it. Why can't we, you know? What's going to happen if you don't do anything? Eventually you're going to have permits denied, and I don't think that's DEQ's goal, but according to the Clean Water Act and EPA, if you know, if something doesn't happen, they will deny it, you know. Maybe subject to lawsuits. Again, Baton Rouge is currently being sued by several environmental organizations. We're very familiar with those organizations. They comment on our TMDLs a lot, and you may get fined. And then consent decrees. And Baton Rouge is currently spending, I think it's $1.8 billion, and they have a whole list of, I think, 92 projects that's due to be completed by the end of 2014. They're spending about 400 and something million this year alone, and it's all to address their sewer problems. They have a lot of leaks, and they're a big contributor to Bayou Manchac, no doubt, and we recognize that. They have a lot of leaks. When it rains a lot, their sewer overflows, and I've seen some samples from that, or I've seen the results of it, and it's quite bad at times. And then after all that, you'd have to address your problem in the future at a much higher cost. And that's the end of my presentation. You know, I've talked about Bayou Manchac because it's on the consent decree. But we also have surveyed Blind River and New River. They were once on the consent decree. Due to the listing that comes out every 2 years, they came off of one of those lists, so it's not on the consent decree anymore. But it's still listed as impaired. They're going to be listed as impaired on our 2010 integrated report, or our 2010 303D list, which is our list of impaired water bodies. So we plan to develop TMDLs for those water bodies as well. after the consent decree. You know, it's very likely that by Manchac in phase 2 that we will have to go back out and resurvey it again, because if all these projects are completed, there may be, the water quality may be much improved, so much so that the existing surveys and models that we have would not be appropriate. The same thing's going on in Gray's Creek. We surveyed that one before they had the new plant. Now they got a new plant in there. The water is just clear coming out of there, greatly improved. We want to resurvey that one too, you know. So the idea there is that Bayou Manchac is not the only water body in this parish that's impaired. Need to address Blind River and New River as well. Blind River is actually not listed as impaired, but that is because where the site is, it is actually, there's a lot of flow due to the Amite River. So when you have a lot of flow, it increases reaeration, helps dissolve oxygen. That is probably not a true assessment of Blind River. So we're looking at modifying what we call our subsegments, which is just a hydrologic management unit, so we can better parse out those areas. The part that's getting a lot of flow from the Amite River, we can separate that from the upstream reaches and move an assessment site up there. So I anticipate, based on the data that I've seen, I anticipate that area is going to come up as impaired as well. So that's pretty much the end of my presentation. I think the regional plant that you have here, we all do at DQ, think it's a very good thing, you know. So we're looking forward to it. So
Thank you, Mr. Berger. For
the only
presentation.
thing the recommendation I do have is that if there are some areas where there is development existing, that that collection zone be expanded to include those areas.
Thank you.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chuck, you said there's 138 businesses. How many of those in East Baton Rouge Parish for the Bayou Manchac?
I couldn't tell you right offhand.
You just got that total?
Yeah. Actually, I think it's 136. But
136.
Yeah, I know it kind of by heart by now. But I don't know how many is in Ascension Parish and how many are in East Baton Rouge Parish.
Okay.
Right offhand. I could get that to you.
I'd appreciate that. The other thing, exactly what are you trying to do here when you're trying to get everything to go to the Mississippi River, East Baton Rouge Parish, everything that's dumping in to Bayou Manchac?
No, that's not what we're trying to do. Bottom line is what we got to improve the water quality in Bayou Manchac, New River, and Blind River. Mississippi River just happens to be your best option. But because the flow is so great there, you know, it can assimilate a large load. But it's not going to be the answer forever, you know. It's going to have limits as well.
I got you.
So how far along before this process is complete, when you through with all the different bayous and
Bayou
watersheds?
Manchac TMDL has been sent to EPA.
Yeah.
With our original phase TMDL approach. It was, I guess, towards the end of last year, early part of this year. We received, it was the end of last year. We received a whole bunch of comments. It took us a while to address all of them. EPA gave us comments. And then, so we addressed those comments, submitted it again for final approval. That's the normal process. Then we submitted another TMDL as well, and one of the environmental organizations that I mentioned spoke up and said, well, you can't really do that approach. And, you know, EPA, some other people at EPA had reviewed it, and they came back and said, we have to adjust the phase TMDL approach because it originally had no implementation in phase 1. So we're revising that a little bit, and you're going to see us facilities are going to have to start having more stringent limits with phase 1. It's not going to be as drastic as it could be, but the idea is there. We don't want to, you know, do something based on improper criteria. So as soon as we get all that worked out, the TMDL is done, the modeling's done, the report is written. We just got to revise that approach a little bit, and that's what I have right here a little bit. So we're trying to work out the details. So very soon.
Well, it's imperative that we move in the direction of parish-wide sewer. If we don't, we certainly, if you listen what's coming up in the future, we're certainly going to have problems. And you know, DEQ's been a good partner. They've been working with us. I've been involved in other aspects with the Clean Air Act, and certainly, you know, we're in a non-attainment area there, and seems like the requirements become more and more stringent. If we meet one certain criteria, then they come back the next couple of years with a more stringent criteria, and then it continues on growing. And I hope that this program doesn't get to that point where you almost can never attain your goals. But I think this is a start, and I think we need to do what we need to do, and certainly get into the sewer business and make every effort that we can get our waterways clean and do what's best for Ascension Parish.
I think the point I've tried to make at this presentation and previous presentations is that, like I said, if you do nothing, it's going to be, you might have a hard time getting discharge permits. You know, you're not the only parish that's in this boat. Livingston Parish is in the same boat. They're starting to develop a master plan now, or a more comprehensive master plan. They, from what I heard, they have a master sewer plan as well. But they have Grays Creek and Collier Creek. They're impaired water bodies we're working on. St. Tammany Parish, we've been worked with them. We visit with them pretty regularly. They have just gotten in the sewer business. They bought out one of the big companies out there that runs a lot of the plants out there. So I know the lady out there very well. She's very proactive, very smart, and she taught me a lot of what I know. But they're in the same boat. You know, they got Chifuncta River. Problem with Chifuncta River, it's what they call an ONRW, which means it's an outstanding natural resource water, and it steps up the regulation a little bit and makes it harder to get facilities in there, I guess. There's something we call anti-degradation, you know, so it's harder to get new facilities in there. But it's got 900 facilities in it now, and that's a big problem. So we're looking at Bayou Cane as well, also in St. Tammany Parish, and Bayou Lacombe. And Bayou Cane is also in our ONRW, and they've got a lot of people wanting to develop out there, so they've got some big problems as well.
President, 1999 201 facility plan that was designed the northern end of the parish, that discharge was to the, it was discharged into the wetland, wasn't it?
It wasn't completed, but some of it was developed to go into the wetlands, yes.
And that was one of your suggestions, that we discharge to the wetlands?
Yeah. What we're telling a lot of facilities now, if they have a wetlands, I say specifically an instance in Chifuncta River, we had a facility come talk to us, or a new facility. You can't go directly to the Chifuncta River because it's an impaired water body. But the wetlands may be the thing that allows them to discharge at all. Thing about wetlands, though, it's going to require more monitoring. And you're still going to have to meet stringent limits. It's just, it may allow you to discharge. You know, wetlands need nutrients. And the thing is, there's more monitoring costs there.
Anything else from Mr. Chuck? Do you have anything? Councilman Lambert, anything else?
The only other thing I might add, very familiar with the Grays Creek. I'd like to see if maybe some of our operators or some of the members here could tour that facility if possible.
I'm sure they could. I can call the guy out there,
Yeah.
the operator.
I think
We've toured it ourselves a couple times.
how much does that take in, just that new plan?
I'm not sure what they're taking right now. I know that the new plan is designed for, I think, 6 million gallons a day.
Uh-huh.
With maybe, it's either 4 and expandable to 6 or 6 and expandable to 8, something like that. But
Okay. I didn't know.
they have also addressed nutrient issues as well, nutrient removal. So they were kind of thinking ahead a little bit, you know.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Grant, you have anything?
Councilman, what I have here on this subject is just what the parish president told you. What I'd like to everybody to take away from this presentation is kind of two key factors here. That basically what we're about to be here in about the next 24 months is a requirement for 75% load reduction, okay, from where we are now. Because all of our water bodies are out of compliance right now, 100% out of compliance. And in about 2 years, we need to be 75% of a load reduction. And the other is that one of the main recommendations here is the incorporation of large regional treatment plants, which is the strategy that we're on. And the strategy that we're on has a large regional treatment plant with the 2 to 5 reductions that have been discussed here. So we are on track to do what's been talked about here, but we have to keep on track, because if we don't accomplish this, we're going to stand a high possibility of no new discharges and limiting the ones that we have greatly. So,
Can I speak?
Yes, sir.
I've attended a few of the meetings, and I've seen a lot of people that had a problem comprehending the master plan, and they were opposed to it. And, you know, I think they want to preserve that rural aspect. And if you don't take this sort of planning effort, you won't preserve it, because the development's going to occur here no matter what, you know. And the I guess, methods of sewage treatment that you've had in the past have been okay. Now, as you get more people, it's not okay, you know. You're gonna have to step up the treatment level a little bit, you know. I've looked at TMDLs from other states, and mostly in the southeast, and the state that's probably has the most water bodies that are like ours, I would say, is Georgia. They have a lot of lowland swamps and bogs and things like that, maybe southern Georgia. They also have a lot of dissolved oxygen problems. Most of the states in our federal EPA Region 6, they don't have the same problems we do. You know, they're Texas, Oklahoma, things like that. They don't deal with dissolved oxygen like we do. But when I looked at the Georgia TMDLs, well, our TMDLs, we generally, like I said, you know, there's 136 facilities in the Bayou Manchac TMDL. We got 40 or 50 in Grays Creek, I think, 130 some odd in Coyell Creek, estimated 980 in Chafuncta River. When I looked at Georgia, they didn't have that. They had 8 or 10, you know, and most of them, the size of the plants varied anywhere from 4 million gallons a day to 17 million gallons a day. And when I looked at the aerials, it looks like a giant neighborhood, you know, and because they just have a tremendous amount of development, but they are seemingly able to handle it, you know, with the large regional treatment plants, I guess. Now, I've heard other things that there's other systems that may work, and they may, but we just haven't seen them here, you know.
Question, Parish President, Mr. Grant. Is there any way possible we can give this presentation to the full council?
we've been discussing that, and I'll work with Mr. Berger to give us, you know, may need to do a little condensed version because of the length of our council meetings, but
Right.
but we want to tell the story to as many people as we can possibly tell it. Because it's real, and it's facing us right now, and it's been done in our master planning process, but we really do need to communicate this wide across the parish.
That is, as I said, is already being initiated from our end, but if you guys want to initiate something, go ahead. What we have planned is my presentation. This is actually an abbreviated version of it. The presentation from our permits group, and possibly from our small business group, and it's anywhere, it's going to take several hours, you know, but the idea is we want to address the decision makers, you know. So if you guys can set that up, great.
Councilman Shekau, you had something?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate, I just think it's something that's an eye-opener. I know I had really no idea until we been getting involved in it, the true extent and what the implications are. And if people are concerned, I know in the master plan, they're concerned about land values and such. And if we go into the consent decree and they have no more permits or discharge, then that renders your land totally useless. And so, in order to maintain value with people's personal properties, just for that reason, it's very important that we comply. And then added on to the other reasons about the increased cost of things that, and what's happening to people of Ascension Parish are falling into a situation now we're paying for decisions that were made in the past. And, you know, there's no easy way around it. We're going to have to make some hard decisions, and it's just time for us to step up to the plate and do what's right.
I can tell you that, you know, I'm the TMDL contact person, names on the website, and we send these letters out, and so I get a lot of people calling me, asking me about them. You know, what does it mean for my facility? You know, somebody's got a trailer park somewhere and they're discharging into it. You know, they want to know what, you're going to shut me down? And I reassure them that that's not our goal. You know, our goal is to improve the water quality in Bayou Manchac, New River, Blind River, whatever it may be. But there's going to be some more stringent limits. And I've had a developer call me, you know, because he had received the message that there was going to be no more development in Ascension Parish because of this. And I reassured him, and I explained the whole process to him, you know, about the phased TMDLs. And he was very appreciative, and he realized that you know, cleaning up regional treatment plants would increase property value, I think. So he was very appreciative and complimentary, more or less.
Excuse me, what can we do to improve the quality of discharge from the different facilities that we have? I mean, obviously, from what we're being told, they're not discharging properly from what they're supposed to be discharging. What can we do as a local government to try to assure the people that
I think you're heading in that direction.
We're requiring?
Yeah, I think you're heading in that direction. If you want to talk about individual plants, I couldn't tell you. I've never operated one, you know. But they're going to be faced with more stringent limits if the regional plant doesn't take place. The idea that we would like to see is get all these guys tied into some sort of regional plan. We think that's the best option. If you come up with something better, great, you know. But
there's no requirements, there's no penalties, anything from your end if you have a facility operator that's not meeting the requirements that they were supposed to be meeting.
It's quite possible, but that's not up to me. That's somebody besides myself. We developed the TMDLs.
Okay.
You're not in enforcement, is what you
Okay.
say.
Parish President?
I just want to thank Mr. Berger for coming and shedding the light on, and speaking to the committee, and we're going to work with him to set up that meeting. I think it needs to be a separate meeting. I don't think you want to tie it to a council meeting, and we'll set some dates and get the word out to you.
Thank you again, Mr. Berger. You had some good information, share it with us today, and I just feel that the rest of the council need to hear it, and the public. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Agenda item number 5, DEQ loan application, finance plan, Mr. Cedric Grant.
Yes, sir. I have Mr. Dugas here, our bond counsel, to brief you on the steps that we now have to engage in to secure the DEQ $18 million loan. We have a very, very involved process over the next 3 months in order to close that loan and secure that $18 million and move forward. Mr. Dugas?
Thank you, Mr. Grant.
Thank you.
Good evening, members of the committee. What we have, excuse me, what we have is, I think you have a copy of the time schedule in front of you, which we prepared. As you can see, if we started the process today, it starts off on April 13th. There are certain requirements that need to be met. In particular, you need to make, first thing you need to do, we can go through it step by step, but I'll kind of outline it for you. If you have some specific questions, I'll be glad to answer them. Such as on May 11th, the big thing there is you have to make the notice of intent, which is to actually notify that you want to issue the bonds. Then you have to go to bond commission, which is the preliminary meeting, a preliminary approval on July 15th. There's certain publication requirements. Then you go back to you go back to the bond commission on August the 19th for the final approval. And then in early September, you have to have the ordinance proposed, the bond ordinance proposed, which the council has to act upon. The major thing here is you have to have everything, once you go back to bond council for final approval, everything has to be in order. You have to have the engineering done, you have to have the feasibility study done, and mainly you have to have your rate structure. As to what, how you're going to pay back the loan. The loan is done in the nature of bonds through DEQ. It's a low-interest loan. The funding is favorable, but they're going to want to know how the parish is going to pay back the $18 million. If you have some, as you can see, there are 2 pages worth of steps that need to be taken in order to comply with all the requirements. And as Mr. Grant said, it's a arduous and tedious process that we need to go through. But if we're going to do this and we're going to do it, the loan application with DEQ is for the year 2010. And you can see that if we started today, this process, if we did it as expeditiously as we could, would run all the way through October of 10, when we would close on the bonds. So it is somewhat of a lengthy and time-consuming process.
So what we're looking for is a motion to send this to the full council to vote to move on bonding this, borrowing this $18 million.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Collins, second by Councilman Shake Snyder, that we send this to the full council to move to borrow the money from DEQ. Any opposition to the motion? None. Motion passes. Would you make sure that that goes to the full council? Recommendation from the utility committee to move forward.
Yes, sir.
Anything else, Mr. Grant, on that issue?
No, sir, that's a major step forward.
Thank you.
But next month is going to be really next.
Okay, agenda item number 7, utilities district.
But let me get to 6 a bit.
Number 6.
I'm sorry.
As you saw in the thing we just passed, there's a need to finalize the plans for this plant. We met today. I meet every 2 weeks with the program manager and all of the consultants on this program. We now have 100% drawings for the sewer plant, complete.
From the Corps.
Yes, sir. They are complete. We are 80% complete on the sewer effluent discharge and 30% complete on the sewer pump station for this plant. And we had a meeting this afternoon, a 2-hour meeting with BASF, and are moving forward on the land donation and the right-of-way for this plant. All things are on track and moving according to the schedule in anticipation of, as you saw here, as this loan closes in October, to be able to move to construction of the plant. So we're on track and moving. What I will add is a 168 to this is that we're also beginning the development of the RFP you authorized, the council authorized at this last meeting for a potential sewer privatization for the collection system. So all of these things are on parallel tracks, goal being some 24 months from October of 2010 when we turn the plant on, we would have the potential for private and public customers able to use that plant. A lot of work ahead of us, but we are on track to move this program forward. Which moves me right into number 7. At the last council meeting, the council passed the utility district for the east bank of Ascension. This allows us to begin to assume the two outstanding water districts that are on the east bank and begin to create the operations and rate structure for this sewer plant and sewer operation. So you'll see in May, we'll come forward to you with the potential rate structure to help us cover the debt service on this loan. From this point forward, every month, the Utilities Committee will be dealing with significant issues related to the development and operation of this sewer plant.
Any questions for Mr. Grant? Councilman Shaker? Councilman Lambert?
Mr. Grant, on the rates, has anything been set, or are you gonna bring that to us in May?
We are
Or do you
still-
have a rough estimate?
It's a bit higher than where we are now on our plants, but I mean, we've talked about it somewhere between the $40 and $45 range is at least what we're gonna need to do. Now, this is the deal. In order to close this loan, we have to set the rate. The rate doesn't get collected till the plant is built.
Okay.
So that's some 24 months away, but we do have to tell DEQ and the world how we're gonna cover this debt and how we're gonna do this.
Councilman Collins? Anything? Thank you. Cedric? President Martinez up.
I guess we can talk rate a little bit, but basically, the people that are now paying whatever, $28 a month, if they continue, the operators are gonna have to do some major improvements according to what you heard tonight from DQ. So they're gonna have to pass that along to their customers also. So you're looking at about the same rate no matter who does it, whether it remains the same or if the parish would actually get into the sewer business. So you're gonna have to set that rate accordingly.
I was hoping we'd find a way to help subsidize it. Councilman Shaker?
Yeah, precisely what you're talking about, President Martinez was seeing. I know one particular plant on the West Bank, they're getting their rates increased and in the mid-40s, and their effluent is not near about the quality that they have in, with the regional plant. So it's not even going to be close.
Anything else, President? Moving right along, thank you. Agenda item number 8, the lighting district. I put that on the agenda. When you ride around the parish, you notice a lot of lights are not working, and we're paying every month for those lights. We need to come up with a way to check them and have energy to repair. Looking for some help, Brother Nick.
I would ask this committee to send a resolution to Entergy, and I guess Demco doesn't have any, but Entergy to ask them if they can go out and police these lights to let them, when they're out, to certainly go out and repair them. That, I don't know what the standard is. I don't deal with the lighting districts that much on a day-to-day basis, so.
Well, lighting district number 6, I used to go once a month and ride with David Herring, and we make a list of the lights and send it in to have them repaired.
So you're not doing that anymore?
No, sir.
So would you like somebody from our utilities department to do so?
Yes, sir.
I still need a resolution from this committee to send to Entergy to make sure that the energy person rides.
I don't have a problem with that. Councilman Shaker?
I think it should be the lighting district's responsibility to bear the cost. And so if you get a prorated amount of whatever it would take to have somebody do that, and you could take it from all of the different lighting districts as a prorated thing. The bigger ones obviously would pay more than the smaller ones, but then we could make sure that everyone would have their lights on, and we'd monitor it at a certain amount of time.
That would certainly be appreciative if the lighting district could absorb that.
And to make a
I'd like
motion.
to put that in the form of a motion, and then we'd find out what the cost would be from the administration side, and then we could figure out how much we would have to assess the individual lighting districts to get them covered. Because the people deserve to have their lights on because we're paying for it.
We'll have that number for you at the next meeting.
The motion was made by Councilman Shake Snyder, second by Councilman Collins, to look at taking the funds from the lighting district to pay for somebody to check and make sure that the lights are working. And that the administration do that. Any opposition to the motion? None, motion passes. There's also another part of this where we need to send a letter to Energy. The resolution.
Move on the resolution.
Yeah, second.
Motion by Councilman Lambert, second by Councilman Shake Snyder to send a resolution to Energy to look at all the lights in the lighting district, and also give us a, I guess, a chart with the location of the lights.
Just for discussion, and I'll make that motion for discussion, but, Mr. President, when we do make our survey, if we could keep up with the amount of time that the lights are out and then reduce that from our bill that we pay for energy, because I find that at times it's 2-3 months, sometimes more, that the lights are out, and I don't think we should pay for services if they're out.
It's got some been out for 6 months, and I know for sure.
Yeah.
How long.
And that way, if we monitor it and we keep track of which ones are out, we would have something to, and I think that would expedite things. It would encourage them to get them put on a little bit quicker.
Well, I will certainly discuss that with Energy at the meeting we have.
And I would like to see Mr. Herring at our next meeting.
I will request his presence.
Thank you. Motion to send a resolution to Energy was made by Councilman Lambert, second by Councilman Collins. No opposition to the motion. Moving right along, would you get the resolution together, President?
We will get it together.
Thank you. Agenda item number 9, Curtis environmental issues.
Good evening. We have a couple of issues to bring up to amend the contract we have with Curtis. Curtis has been our lab testing for the treatment plants for about 5 years. The first thing is we need to amend the budget to take in sampling at the Butch Gore Park twice a year. It wasn't required before, and it is now. And also that the temporary plant we have at the jail, it just, all the problems we had with bidding out that job to go to Donaldsonville, we still have the plant, and we'll have it for about 6 more months. So we have to do the testing on it. We already test the existing plant at the jail. This is the one for the new facility. And it's like Butch Gore Park is like $70 testing.
That's $100.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry, $100 per testing, and the jail's about $70.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Councilman Dempsey Lambert, second by Councilman Shake Snyder to send that to the full council meeting recommendation from the Utilities Committee to move forward with Mr. Matas's request.
Okay, also, at the Lamar Dixon facility, when the parish bought it, it is still being maintained by Dub Environmental, which was been there from day one. And we would request Curtis Environmental, which we would save about $300 a month, but also get a lot of knowledge out of them, and they will train us to run that plant, which is similar to the brand-new plant, the way it runs.
Mr. Matassa, do we have a contract with them on
We're doing-
Lamar Dixon?
I've been doing a PO 3 months at a time, and I think we got a couple more months left after this month. the contract is over with Dove on Lamar Dixon.
Move to issue a new contract for Curtis Environmental.
Well, let's finish this last issue. There wasn't
I think
any
that's-
opposition to the motion. The motion passed to send that to the full agenda on the jail and the,
Butch Gore.
Butch Gore. Now, let's.
Okay, now on
no
Lamar.
Opposition to the motion passed. Now, let's take this one out.
Okay. Lamar Dixon facility, Curtis Environmental will charge us $1,000 a month plus the testing, which right now we're paying $1,200 plus the testing. And also be a consultant for us at any time, at regular during the day at $40 an hour, and overtime at $55 an hour, which is unheard of. It's very good pricing for that type of consulting.
Move to endorse the plan Mr. Matas has put forward.
Motion by Councilman Shake Snyder, second by Councilman Collins to move forward with hiring these guys to, Curtis, to take care of the Lamar Dixon plant.
Let me ask Mr. Grant something. Mr. Grant, can we put them just amend it into the contract or a separate contract for Lamar Dixon? Okay. All right. Thank you.
Motion for that to go to the full council to hire environmental engineering to maintain the Lamar Dixon plant. No opposition to the motion. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 10, condition to accept Freezing and Villa subdivision sewer plant by the parish. Mr. Grant.
A couple of months ago, the Utilities Committee asked us to consider the acceptance of this new subdivision sewer plant as a part of a strategy of trying to begin to assimilate these sewer plants into a central system. We've reviewed it with our utilities engineer and utilities staff, and the recommendations I have on the last sheet for you are the conditions under which I'd consider that acceptance. One is that the plant meets the DEQ and EPA approval of plant design. What we have before us has not yet been approved by them. And a step out of the sewer line to Highway 42. We are currently doing some sewer design work on Highway 42, and it would be very helpful to be able to eventually connect that into that central line. And secure the utility service suit for the force main to Highway 42. Provide us with an emergency pump connection so we could connect emergency power to it in a time of emergency, and coordinate the pump design with the utilities department. Under those conditions, we recommend acceptance.
Make that motion.
Motion by Councilman Collins, second by Councilman Shake Snyder, that we accept this sewer system into the parish, as a parish sewer system. And this motion go to the full council. Recommendation from the Utilities Committee.
Can we make note that this is a new plant, and
Yes,
so
sir.
this would be, when you get into, is that correct?
it's a new
Yes,
facility.
sir.
When you get into the sewer system, we're inheriting the ones that have run their lifespan where they're profitable, and we've been taking them in, unfortunately, when the operator is gone, and so now we're getting one that's a newer one, and there is a period of time that you can operate it successfully, so I think that's the way to go for the parish, best use of our money. So we appreciate whatever developer did to initiate this, so.
Mr. Grant, how many customers we talking about?
It's 36 lots,
Apartment?
36 lots.
Oh, small.
Small.
Okay, no opposition to the motion. Motion passes. Go to full council. Any new business, President?
I'd like to start discussion about creating a new, I guess, utility, not district, but utility customer or branch of our utility at Lamar Dixon at the first of the year. We will go through this year, but maybe putting it on our utilities department and then looking at ways to expand that system and pick up the customers that live on St. Landry Road and the trailer parks and utilizing that plant to pick up those customers, and that's one less thing that we have to do. And then if for some reason that there's some development at MP Evans, we'd have that plant ready to go, and we could actually utilize it to service some of those customers in that area. So it's just for discussion right now, but we'd like to maybe kind of move toward that goal and maybe start getting some preliminary numbers of what it would cost to service those people. So I just want to see if that would meet with your approval.
I think that's a good idea, President. Put us in the sewer business a little bit quicker. Councilman Shakes, now you got anything? Councilman Collins? Lambert?
Nope.
Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned.
Motion by Councilman Lambert to adjourn, second by Councilman Shakes, now. Adjourn.